Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast, where the legal industry gets real. I'm your host, Eda Rosa, legal consultant, speaker, and founder of Eda Rosa LLC and the Limitless Paralegal Academy. This isn't your stuffy legal studies school lecture. We're talking mindset, money, modern workflows, and how to build a career and a life you don't need a vacation from. Let's cut the fluff, raise the bar, and change the game one conversation at a time. If you like what you hear, feel free to share and send us your feedback. Now let's talk paralegal. In this episode, I'm joined by attorney Ryan Schwartz, who believes that law isn't just about cases, it's about people. Ryan takes a deeply personal approach to client communication, making sure every person he works with is treated with the same care and respect he'd want if he were in their shoes. Listen in for more. Welcome to the Let's Talk Paralegal podcast. I'm your host, Eda Rosa, and today I have attorney Ryan with us. We are going to be talking about probably one of my favorite topics because we thrive on this when we are doing our business with law firms. And this is the number one concern of all industries, but definitely the legal industry lacks in this, in communication. It's the way that we cater to our clients. And Ryan is obviously doing a great job at this, and he's going to tell us a little more about that. But before we get into that, Ryan, you would mind introducing yourself and giving us a little 5-minute snippet of you and who you are?
Well, my name is Ryan Schwartz. I am the owner of Schwartz Trial Law in Atlanta, Georgia, and I primarily practice personal injury. My practice began 11 years ago, doing primarily criminal defense, felonies, misdemeanors, DUIs, and while I still do a lot of the lower end criminal cases, like the misdemeanors, my practice primarily focuses on personal injury, which includes car accidents, slip and falls, any kind of bodily injury claim.
Um, And I know personally, because I litigated many of those files for many years for personal injury, not criminal. I know that these clients come to us not only physically hurt sometimes, but emotionally traumatic. Most of them, especially if it's a child, that's an added, I guess, element to the situation. And so handling these type of cases is more than just the physical injuries. We have to look at the client in their entirety and the entire situation. And so how do you navigate through these little intricacies? Because it can be tough sometimes, right? They can be aggressive just as much as they can be super emotional, and emotions run high. So how do you handle and navigate through those?
Well, certainly, I think every case there's a phrase in law, you take the client as you find them. And I
Mm.
think, where someone like myself who has who's a solo practitioner versus a bigger law, like one of those billboard lawyers or national law firms, I'm giving the client personal attention. I think you have to sit there and understand your client. You can't treat them like a case file. You have to treat them like they matter because they do and understand kind of what they're going through. Not every client should be going to the same chiro, or not every client should be going to the same ortho. People have different needs, and you have to sit there and kind of understand what they're going through and who they are and what they're, I guess, complaining about with their injuries and things like that. So it's getting to know the client and making sure you have good communication, and that includes with myself and with my team, my paralegals.
Yeah, so you mentioned your team, which was my next topic. And you mentioned in our prior conversation that you have a really strong team and that they're really good at what they do. How did you get them to that point?
Well, like anything in law or when you're running your own business, there's a lot of errors that are made. And I think in the beginning, when I started really building up my personal injury practice and I needed that help, I took suggestions from other people as to who I should hire. And over time, as I picked up and I learned what I was doing and how I wanted things to be done, I realized those weren't necessarily the right people to kind of get me there and take me to the next level. And I went through one or two people, and I finally found people that have not only good client interaction experience, they have the big firm experience. They've worked at a lot of different firms, and they wanted something smaller where they were treated with respect and not the way they were treated at these bigger firms. And when you take that with the fact that they know how to case manage a case properly and go from A to B to C and fill in all the blanks in between, you kind of have the right people. No one's perfect, but I believe now I have a few folks that are just outstanding, and I really rely on them and trust them with everything going on with these cases.
Yeah, and trust needs to be earned, right? So a lot of times when as the employee, we don't really realize that we know our worth and we know our talents and we know our skills. And at times I know I was a victim to this. I was very arrogant because I knew I was good and I knew that I could do everything, but you still need to prove yourself in your new environment, right? Because they don't know that. They don't know your work, they don't know your reputation. Even if it is from a referral or from someone that referenced you or whatever the case may be, which often that's how I would get my jobs is through somebody knowing me and knowing my work. But that was beside the point. It didn't matter, right? You have to kind of show your worth and not prove your worth, right? We have to be very delicate with our wording here because I don't want people to think that, oh, I'm the best, I'm this, I'm boasting, and then all of a sudden, that gives you the right to act or do certain things. And so I know because I handle that day in and day out. I've seen the ones that are very self-conscious and insecure about their skills and are really great at what they do. They just don't have the confidence in themselves quite yet. And then I see the ones that are super confident but don't have the skill, right? Like we get we get like two sides of the spectrum, and it's really hard to navigate through a team, right? The bigger your team, the bigger it is, and I think that's what Big Loss struggles with. I think they lose the reins once they get to a certain threshold, and then they lose the control. They use the leadership, and then they try to put these people into place that, like you were saying and you were alluding to earlier, is they may not be the right fit for that, right? So how was that onboarding process? Like, how did you figure out the formula for your firm?
Well, I'm always still figuring it out. I think what knew in the beginning was my message is clear, treating people the way they'd want to be treated. You're given this opportunity, this license to practice law, and I can't tell you how many attorneys I know in this town, as probably in every community across the country. These folks, they treat it like a mill, like a money making thing, and it's not about the money. It's about helping people. And if you do good work and you treat people right and you have a good reputation, you'll make money. But more importantly, you'll attract the people that share that message with you. And I
Mm,
have one of my paralegals came from a big law firm where, I mean, she was treated like crap. And she had to worry about performance reviews and hitting certain goals and certain numbers. I don't do any of that. I just
mm,
want the case managed. And so when you give someone free rein a little bit to, hey, I want this done today, but like I'm not tracking their goals and their minutes. I mean, that is all BS to me. And all the other stuff that goes along with that in this industry that people get caught up in, like the parties these ridiculous parties that people host, or the cars, or these events, like that means nothing to me. And when you realize that that's not what personal injury should be, it's about treating the client a certain way, and you'll find those people. And I think letting people understand what your message is, that makes the onboarding process a little bit easier. But it's for me, I use a certain case management software, so I was looking for people with that experience. I have people who have that experience with that case management, and they have years of experience when dealing with clients and how to manage the phone calls and the calls to the doctors. And so I didn't think the onboarding was that hard. It was just kind of gelling with them and making sure we're on the same page and we're rolling along with the case.
In the legal world, details win cases, and missing one can cost everything. That's why we're proud to be sponsored by a firm, Investigative Solutions. They partner with attorneys and legal teams to uncover the facts that matter most, from background investigations and witness locates to surveillance and asset searches. A firm, Investigative Solutions, is discreet, thorough, and laser-focused on supporting strong case strategy, so you can focus on advocating for your clients. If you need answers, not assumptions, visit affirmpi.com and schedule a free consultation. Affirm Investigative Solutions. Investigate before you litigate.
I'm curious, did you interview them yourself or did you have someone interview them?
I interviewed them myself. Yep.
Yeah. Yeah, long were the days. I just had a podcast recording, I believe it was yesterday, with another guest, and we were mentioning this, for most of us that have been in the industry for, 20, 30 years. In her case, she's been in it for 50. We have seen long are like the days where we used to interview with the people that were actually going to manage us, right? Like, it was so weird. Like we met everyone. We met the attorneys. We've met the manager. If there was a manager in between the attorney, if it was where it was a paralegal or a legal assistant, you'd meet the whole team that you would be involved in and working day in and day out at the interview because that is kind of the best way to be. I guess understand, okay, is this something that I want to do? Is this a place I want to be? And then you would get a tour of the law firm. I remember I don't even know how many tours of law firms I received when I was, doing the interview. I would walk around the office and they would say, "This is Eda," and they would introduce me and and that's where you really got a feel for the environment. Obviously now in the new elements of, hybrid models or fully remote or virtual, it gets a little different. But there can still be, those little in between moments where you patch in somebody, right? Or you add them to the link, or you say maybe a second interview. I've heard the horror stories of, some of these paralegals that are looking for jobs now. It's intense. Like there's an AI that's interviewing them where they're fully talking to an AI person before they even talk to anybody at the company. There's another one where she went through 5 rounds of interviews and did not get hired. And so it's like, what's with the red tape, right? What are we looking for? And maybe I should write, maybe that's another episode, right? I should write that down and create something out of it because I'm trying to see what the logic behind that is, right?
Well,
And it just gets,
I think you see a lot of these firms, and I won't name any specifically because we all know them, but when you see
yes.
billboard firms of these mills, you're not practicing law, you're running a mill. So the model is to get as many cases in and settle them for 25,000, settle them for 25,000, settle them for 25,000. And it doesn't matter if the client's still injured or hurt. You just want, your cut and to move on to the next case. And that that works for them. I think that's wrong. I think that's a wrong way of doing business. I'd rather have, I mean, I have a lot of cases. Probably have more than most solo practitioners, and not one of them was from getting the case unethically. Every single one of them was a referral or someone knew me from a previous case or something like that. And so it allows me to kind of like take that more seriously because that person chose me. They could have chosen any attorney, but they picked me. And
Yeah.
so I don't want to treat them like a number or like they're just part of the mill. So I make sure if I haven't talked to that client in a while, I'll tell my paralegal, hey, we need to place a call to them, find out what's going on. We have not talked to them in a little bit. I want them to know you have direct access to me. You have direct access to the paralegal. This is not some
Right.
business. And those people who are at those big firms, there's, 400 people working there or whatever it is. Those people, when they realize they're not being appreciated or no one really, or there's no path for growth or no one really
Mm,
cares about what they're doing, they'll leave and then they just bring in someone new. And the client never really knows who the attorney is or who the paralegal is because it's constantly changing. And I think
right.
those people make millions and millions of dollars. I think that's the wrong way to run a business. And a lot of those people eventually get in trouble because they're getting the cases unethically.
Okay.
And
Absolutely.
that's not how I run my shop, and I will never run it that way.
No, I hear you. I've seen that, and we know exactly who you're talking about. I've seen the big laws, and I don't want to say all big laws like that, but the majority of them are pretty much like you were saying, a mill, especially in the personal injury realm, right? Like I've seen corporate businesses, they don't need as many cases because their clients are a little more affluent and they have a lot more funds to manage, and so this is just really very specific to, I would say, either family law or personal injury, or more like day in, day out, what I call the daily lawyers. I don't know why. I just came up with that term a few months ago, and I was like, my goodness, I have to like be careful with my words now because we've gotten a few cease and desist letters.
Right.
So I'm
Right.
like, oh my goodness, all right, we got to be careful. We can't be branding this or doing anything with it. But yeah, I call it the Daily Lawyer. But apparently there's a newsletter or newspaper that's called that. So I'm like, okay, guys, it's just a term. I'm not doing it for anything else. So now every time I talk on an episode, I'm gonna have like little disclaimers. Like it's just, it's just a thought. And so anyway, but I hear you. I hear that. I hear the difference. But one thing I wanted to talk to about more, I guess specifically, is when we get those. I don't like calling them difficult clients because they're not. They're just going through something, and it's a pivotal moment in their life, and this is all their life for a good amount of time, depending on what it is. But let's talk about those. I guess like emotional clients, right? That come in and they're very they require extra attention and they're constantly calling in and they're what are ways that you either manage that or handle that, or maybe your team has like a setup or something like that where we can kind of provide this to our paralegals and our legal support staff members that are listening, and even our lawyers can take a few tips on this. But are there any processes or anything that you can think of that helps with those type of clients?
Well, it just goes back to the golden rule that, I always deliver to my clients. Treat them the way you'd want to be treated if you were in their shoes. Or my famous line that I always give that is a quote of a Maya Angelou quote where people will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, people won't forget how you made them feel. And when you recognize someone is going to be a lot early on, you might call them and say, listen, we've gotten you to the ortho. You need to go to the treatments. You're done with that, we're going to go somewhere else and we'll keep you updated. But we explained there's not a lot really to go on to talk about until the treatment's done. Now, if there's an issue with the treatment or there's a deviation from the treatment or, they're recommending XYZ when we thought it was going to be ABC, we'll talk about it and see how they feel. And do you want to keep, moving forward with this route, or do you want to go a different route? But generally, we have some clients who do require phone calls every week. And we have that noted in the file that someone needs to at least touch base with them every like 7 to 10 days. And if not, we know because they'll call us or text us, hey, I haven't heard from you. What's going on? And the
Yeah.
truth be told, there's nothing to report them. They
Yep.
just want to hear someone's voice.
Hmm.
And I think it's an innate quality. We all want someone to care about our problem as we're going through it. There's just some people that need a little bit more attention, and it's part of the game. We have to, we call them up and we give them that attention, even though there's really nothing to report. Makes them feel better.
I mean, the data and the stats have like continuously decades of research have proven, and up until recent, I think the latest data that we have to date from Clio Legal Trends is that 80% of phone calls that are made to law firms are missed. And that's staggering, right? Like that is just what? What's
Hmm.
happening? And it's been a continuous growth on that element, and it has nothing to do with not picking up the phone. It's what happens after. What are we doing? Why are we missing this? What are the little bottlenecks? So, how can we fix it? And no one's like thinking about that. Nobody is, it's not in the forefront for them.
Well, I also think it's like with anything in life. If I call my wife, I'm at the grocery store and I don't realize what kind of soup she wants. I'm going to call her up and she doesn't answer. Well, what am I supposed to do? I'm just going to have to figure it out. And I know I'll touch base with her. It's the same thing with a client. Clients want attention right now. They want immediate access. Sometimes they'll call my pre-litigation paralegal and she's on the other line. And I know she's
Mm,
going to call that client back, but then the client's calling me. Why didn't she
hmm
answer? Well, she's on the other line. I assure you she will call you back today. And you have to explain to clients like almost like come down to a different level, like relax, it's okay. We will get back to you. We couldn't answer your phone the moment you wanted it.
hmm
And that's human nature. And a lot of people don't understand human nature. They want what they want when they want it and they want it now.
Oh
And
yeah.
and
And then the
sometimes we're
after
not going
hour
to change
calls.
that.
Those are my favorite.
Right, right. Mine too.
But I left a message, yeah, like at 6 o'clock at night.
Right.
We're
So,
not
or
open
sometimes
at six.
clients will call and they'll call like 6 in the morning or 11 at night. And it's like, I don't want to talk to you about your case at either of those times. But they
It's family time.
it pop correct, and it pops in their mind. This is when they want to talk about, and I know they don't really want to talk about anything seriously. They want to just a status on their case. Well, there's no status because you're in the middle of treating and it's 6 in the morning, and we'll talk at a more appropriate time.
Yeah, absolutely. Boundaries, right? That's another
Right.
thing that we have to set. So, what I heard from this episode so far has been setting boundaries and setting expectations are probably the two most key factors in order to really cultivate and create a client communication and staff communication system, right? Like ecosystem. And I agree 100%. I think that we need to start more client centric, more human first, approaches. And in a world where technology assists us in so many ways, like we wouldn't be able to do this what we're doing right now without technology. And they're great. They're great tools that we can use them, and they're tools. But I think sometimes we forget that sometimes I've seen law firms at the both sides of the spectrum where there's still paper files, and then I have one that uses technology so much that the client doesn't even know what to do because there's so much technology, and they're like, wait, so am I doing the intake form here or there or on the app or on the web or on this or on that? And so, we kind of like everything in life, we have to find that, happy median and that happy balance. But again, that has to do with the type of clients, your clients, who, what your clients' needs are. And not every single client has the same need. So we need to start learning what you were saying more about our clients and seeing what their needs are in order for us to serve them properly.
That's very true. I think it's a mistake, I think, in 2025 to do everything fully paper. We have everything scanned in. We do everything. I don't even have paper files anymore. And I think most clients that I've experienced, uh, bringing on, we send them a link. We do intake over the phone now. I can do it in person if they prefer to meet in person. But everything gets entered in and saved. And a lot of times people struggle with the technology. Like if I need a signature from them and I don't have it, we can get a digital signature, but sometimes they are just not comfortable with that. They want to come in and we just make it happen. Just do it because it's easier than arguing with them over the technology. It doesn't matter. They're not going to change. They do things a certain way. Let's just, how can I get your signature? And we just
Exactly.
adapt. So,
Of course. And there's a difference, right, between if it needs a wet signature or if it's a digital signature. So obviously, there's always going to be certain circumstances dependent on the practice of law that you guys are practicing.
right.
So, with that, do you have any tips or resources or anything for our clients to kind of take away from this episode and continue forward?
Well, I think the biggest thing is if you go to a law firm, if you're a paralegal and you're looking to get into the industry or be part of the industry, make sure you're appreciated. Make sure that the people that you're in bed with, so to speak, care about you and care about your growth and care about your development. A lot of these attorneys do not. They are just there to make the money. And then once they move on, they're on to the next case to make more money. And while making money is important, I think what's more important is treating people with respect, having people that share a similar way of thinking on how the client should be treated, and doing right by the client. And if you have those people are going to help your firm grow, and they might even bring cases to your firm. They're a resource as well. They're out there in the world, and I think if you treat people well, you'll karma will come back to you, and vice versa. If you're kind of pardon my language, a shitty boss, and you know, you treat them like it's a mill, they're going to leave, and you're going to get replaced with someone else just like them, and it's not, in my opinion, that's not the way to run a business. I learned a long time ago because I didn't go to law school right out of college. I when I was in high school, I was a waiter. I worked at a food store. You learn the customer, maybe not the customer is always right, but the customer is the most important thing. And treating
Mhm.
people like they matter. That's the key. You treat people right, no matter what walk of life they're from, whether the CEO or they're a janitor. You treat people like they matter. That CEO might never send you another case, but that janitor might send you five other cases because
Right.
they believe in what you did and you treated them right. Treat people like they
Yeah.
matter because they do. That's my message.
I always say you are the brand, right? Even
Correct.
if you are the legal support staff, it doesn't matter. Like I learned this like hands-on, not the hard way, but I learned it hands-on when I was a paralegal, but I was also what they call like the C-suite paralegal. So I managed, the C-suite, and I was in charge of everything. So I was in charge of the events and the reports and everything administrative just as much as I was litigating the files. And that's really when I learned, when I started going to these events and representing the firm, that I was a representation and an extension to the firm. But it wasn't up until that moment that I realized that. And it was already at the tail end of my 9 to 5 career. And that's really when I realized, I'm like, well, we need to learn this earlier on in our career, because once we care about the firm and the companies that we work for and it's reciprocated, life would be so much easier, your job will be so much better, and you'll just overall be happy. Because as soon as I figured out that I was a representation of the company and I was a part of that company just as much as anybody else, that's where it clicked. That's where I soared. That's where I was more interested in investing in myself and personal development, professional development. I was interested in taking CLEs that I didn't even need, but I wanted to take them because I wanted to learn. And that's really where the mindset shift happens. So, my last thing for this episode is invest in yourself. Personal and professional development is important. And you don't have to wait until the tail end of your career to do it. Do it today. And with that, until justice is served, until next time, bye guys. Hey Legal Pros, are you ready to stop playing small? The Limitless Paralegal Academy is officially open, offering powerhouse courses, real-world tools, and expert-led training to help you build the career and life you actually want. We're not stopping there. The Limitless Paralegal Tour is hitting the road. We're bringing the mindset shifts, career strategies, and community straight to your city with epic speakers, actionable sessions, and zero boring PowerPoints. This isn't your average CLE. This is your legal career reimagined. Join the Academy, meet us on tour, become the legal pro everyone remembers. Visit limitlessparalegals.com to enroll and grab your ticket now. Be bold, be brilliant, but most importantly, be limitless.